Hey, hey, Brantford
Afternoon.
popped on for a second. Got
How you
Jason
doing, Alex?
Lafferty coming in. Lisa's coming in. Let's see. Travis is already, I've been on the phone like 5 times with Travis already today. He's got to be sick of hearing from me already. Let's see. I got to put my camera on too, don't I? There I am. Welcome, everybody. Hey, Lisa, are you driving right now?
Yep.
Riding.
Um,
On her way here. So we're going to be
yeah, we're
real
about
hep.
45
We're going
minutes
to be
out.
35 minutes out.
hmm
Cool. Yeah, today wouldn't have worked to go see the property, huh?
No.
All right. Well, let me give 2 or 3 minutes for some other folks to come in. We're going to be real heavy on deal review today. First off, let me ask, how's everybody feel about the earlier time?
Works better for
Brantford
me.
likes it. Lisa likes it. Travis,
I'm
you got
good
an
with it.
opinion? Jason's good with it. Travis, you got an opinion on the earlier time?
Uh, Need some time here. Let me figure it out. Okay
Okay.
for now.
Okay, so Travis has got like 3 projects he's working on at the same time with us, and so he's under the gun heavily for a lot of these deals getting numbers out. So let's start off with some quick wins. Y'all know I always love to start off with quick wins. Gives everybody a chance to kind of celebrate, get in a good mood from what you've been doing. Remember, this can be personal. This can be something in your business, something that you learned on here, something you're excited about. Let's share some quick wins, and who wants to volunteer to go first?
I'll go.
Jay Bird, why don't you go first?
I didn't think I could get much anything in terms of financing because I'm all used up with a couple personal guarantees and a couple developments, but I was able to get an equipment loan and I bought a backhoe yesterday so I can not be relying so much on equipment rentals.
Nice. How much is
Yeah.
that back up?
50 grand. It's 2018 John Deere 310.
Killer. So you're digging trenches, pushing stuff around.
Grading and underground utilities. That's our jam.
Very good. Well, that's important whenever you do all horizontal, right?
hmm
So in development, everybody talks about horizontal and vertical. So RV parks are all horizontal. It's like maybe 3 or 5% vertical. So that's your building, your clubhouse, your showers, everything in there is the horizontal development. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here for a second, but this is some great information for everybody to know. Whenever you do a cost segregation study, the best asset class to do it on is RV parks. So this is something as you're learning, as you're talking to investors and stuff, this is something to remember to point out to them because investors are very interested in not just making a return on their investment. They want to protect their investment. They want to not lose money to those 2 things we talk about, which is inflation, 3% per year average, and taxes, 30%. So that's a big thing that investors are looking for. They're like, man, I got this, $1 million, but I'm going to lose 3% per year to inflation if I just have it as cash. And then also they want to do what they can to avoid paying taxes. So there's 2 different kinds of not paying taxes. There's tax evasion and there's tax avoidance. So tax evasion, you've probably heard of that plenty of times. That's illegal. The IRS will come and find you. That's tax evasion. But tax avoidance is where you come up with a legal strategy, a legal plan to avoid paying taxes. One of those tax avoidance strategies is using what's called a cost segregation study. That means that you're going to hire this special firm, our same title company that we use. One of the reasons I use all these firms, like Madison Title, they also have as part of that Madison Spec, who does cost segregation studies. And then, like, for example, one of the reasons we use Advanced Outdoor Solutions, is because they also have a planning, permitting, and design department that's called Outdoor Hospitality Group. So those two groups are integrated, as well as Madison Spec, which is cost segregation, and Madison Title. So all of these groups that are services, vendors, whatever you want to call them, as you get into actually doing a deal with us, you're going to see that a lot of these companies or vendors that we use, they're tied together. For example, the deal that we just closed yesterday, congratulations to everybody who was closed that deal yesterday. None of them are on the call because they're all working on the, there's Travis. I know you're dipping out because you're working on some numbers, right?
Yeah.
So he's kind of in and out. I know he's under the crunch to get one of our investors. We've got an investor that's going to put in $1 million on the Douglas Forest RV Resort up there in Boston. And so Travis is under the gun to try to get him some numbers tonight, specific on. He's getting kind of a special deal because he's putting in $1 million. So we get a little bit of a special deal. So anyway, congratulations to that whole team. If y'all have seen them on the call, that's going to be Travis, Shalonda, and Doug. Doug is actually on site right now at Webster. He's been there for the past 2 weeks, getting it ready. And 2 weeks? Yep, he's been there for 2 weeks. And then he goes home tomorrow. He'll finally get to see his family and take a breath and maybe take a nap, maybe. I know he's just been killing it, doing a lot of work. Travis has been killing it, doing a ton of underwriting. And Shalonda's been helping us a lot on the whole, getting the pitch deck, getting out to the investors. And one of the things, Travis, let's talk about this for a second, because like I said, we're going to do a lot of deal review, and I'll skip back to quick wins in a second. Travis, let's talk about how it all comes together at the last second.
You're asking me the question? How it all comes
Well, no,
together?
I mean, you saw how it worked this time
Oh, yeah.
and how it's
I see
been
what you're saying.
working. And
Yeah.
I mean, how did you think it was going to go?
Wow. How did I think? I had no preconceived notions at all. I know that when I joined the mastermind, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Join the mastermind, cookie cutter. It's just step 1, step 2, color by numbers. Well, apparently not. So, you do your property list, make your calls, and talk to the sellers and all that stuff. And then you get to your escrow eventually. And then you're like, oh, what we're hazy on is the timeline of events. Certain things happen before close, and obviously certain things happen after close. But there's definitely some gray area in between. And lining up investors ahead of time, that's always a good idea. But hey, man, if you don't, then it gets very interesting.
That's right. So every deal that I've worked on, every syndication, I've always said, man, you guys are so unorganized. You're like doing everything all at the last second. It's all happening at the same time at the last second. And whenever you first start out, it's like, geez, you guys are not organized, because that's the way it happens. Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how organized you are. Actually, that's not the truth. It does matter how organized you are, because if you're not as organized as I help you to get, as this group helps you to get, then would we have gotten this done, Travis, if we weren't as organized? Would we have gotten this thing closed?
No.
Because I mean, whenever we needed things at the last second, we had boom, boom.
Yeah.
Send us this operating agreement. Send us this. What's the numbers on that? What is this? And we had it all because everything that I've been prepping you for is so that at the last second, when everything happens all at the same time, all at the last second, we close on the property, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think everyone definitely, they put their time in when they needed to, and that's a big deal.
Yeah. So as you're getting into this, a little bit of like, what would you call it? Friendly uncle advice. That's what a Dutch uncle, that's what they call it over here in Texas. The Dutch uncle is the one that's not really in the family, and he's the one that'll take you to the side and really tell you how it is. So the kind of Dutch uncle advice here is, you're probably going to think it's all going to be organized and happen, and then at the last second it won't be a rush. Every single one that I've done, literally all the, I don't know if you hear, my voice is beat. I've been on call since Thursday. And I mean, we still have the other deals going on as well. Lisa's coming into town tomorrow. We're going to drive out and spend 4 or 5 hours driving out to a property. Then Monday, Granford's got one hour and a half the other direction. So we're going to spend about 4 or 5 hours driving out there. And in the meantime, we had a deal closing. And so all this happening all at the last second, as we get into it, don't let it stress you out. Actually, let it stress me out. Because what I've been teaching you the whole time and how we organize things, how Doug is going to help you set up folders. So I'll go back and repeat this part that I've talked about before. This team that just closed on Douglas Forest, I've actually brought them on to help me with acquisitions, to help me personally, because they developed so much as a group that they went ahead and formed their own company. They actually have their own acquisition company that I pay a revenue share. So as part of my share, I'm paying them to help me with acquisitions. So that's part of what's going on with them. But my whole point is all of the systems that I've set up, that you learn here in the group, that you learn on the videos, that you learn on the spreadsheets, try to really follow all those steps. Like whenever I tell you set up a data room, that means go into the Google Drive and set up those folders. Organize everything in there. Put all of the information in there. Travis, how is that whenever, like, at closing, they're asking for something that we haven't looked at in 6 months and we can go in and find it just like that?
Oh yeah, if you can't do that, obviously it like you said, it helps to be cognizant of as many details as you can, regardless of the role you're playing. Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's really good. So that's another point as we get into, whenever we get closer and you're actually, like right now, for example, Grant just started on this deal. We're about to just now talk to the seller for the first time and start trying to make a deal, right? At that point, we're like going back and forth, talking, nothing's really happening. And then whenever we get the LOI, they sign it, we get the PSA, we put it into escrow. It kind of feels like you've done a whole lot. And then all of a sudden it seems really slow. Like you might have 1 or 2 things that happen per week for like a month, 2 months, and nothing's going on. Then it starts to pick up again as you're getting towards the closing. And now we're getting in, let's move to the next one. Grantford, just working on talking to the seller, trying to get an LOI out, trying to get a deal. Jason did that about 2 months ago. So Jason's got this great property in Oklahoma. There was a lot of back and forth, a lot of going back and forth with the seller to get it in. Got the deal into escrow, and then it's kind of like there's not a lot that happens. We're doing the underwriting, we're doing the pitch deck, I'm showing it to investors, Jason's showing it to investors, other people in our group are showing it to investors, and nothing has really happened. And then we get on a call today. Jason, let's skip to you and let's talk about that call today.
Yeah.
How'd you think that call went today?
You could tell his brain was turning, and you could tell he was definitely interested for sure. He was
So we
trying to
talked to an
stump. He was
investor to
trying
come
to.
in.
Sorry, yeah, he was trying to stump us with some questions, and I don't think there was any downsides to it. He couldn't find anything wrong with it.
That's right. Because we were prepared in the first part. We did all of that underwriting. So whenever they hit us with these hard questions, as you're getting further into this, we'll be getting on calls with like investors, and I'll have you as the deal getter coming on, and you'll be giving more like context, story of the seller, description of the property, like some background, some context, because you're the acquisitions person. You're the person who's the deal getter. But also you'll probably have like Travis on the call, underwriter. So whenever it comes to like, the guy's going to ask this real weird off the wall question. In year 3, how come this jumps from there at this and that, and some real specifics. Travis pulls up a 20-page spreadsheet and says, in year 3, at 3% reserve, at this, boom, 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 boom. Because the basic spreadsheet that you have from the program, that's going to get you maybe 60% of the way there. Actually, maybe more like 75% of the way there. It gets you a lot of the numbers. But then whenever the investors start really digging in and they're like, Well, how do you break up the unit mix per year per this and that? You know, the spreadsheet, as I work through it with you, we're going over some general stuff. And that'll get us pretty close. But once we dial it in and bring in Travis and we put it into the 10-year underwriting, all the property reserves, what other stuff, pay off the pref reserves, pay off the owner finance reserves, how the utilities will change and property taxes will change throughout the 5-year program. See, I average all that out. That's one of the things that I do is like the 30,000 foot level. So whenever I work with you, it's going to be more of the high view from way up high, looking down over the whole project. And then as further we get into it, we start to bring in like Travis, for example. He's dialing down on the specifics of the project, the really detailed per year, per month, all that kind of stuff, per unit. All of that is broken out and detailed. So whenever an investor at the last minute pops up and says, okay, well, I'll put in 1.6 million, but what happens in year 3 in March? And Travis can go, boom, right there. This is exactly all the numbers. These are the percentages. And it's all right there. So that's huge. Having, you know, one of the things I talk about is that whenever you come into the mastermind and we do a deal together, you're plugging into a team that already exists. So you're plugging into Madison Title, Advanced Outdoor Solutions, Outdoor Hospitality Group, Madison Spec, all of these teams, Recon Equity, which is Travis, Shalonda, and Douglas. So on the other side, not the numbers so much. On more of the acquisition side, whenever it comes to you're trying to get all this due diligence from the seller. Well, Doug is going to be helping you set up folders, helping you organize that information as we get it from the sellers, the construction budget, when are the draws coming out, how much is getting spent on each piece of construction, getting quotes from contractors. There's a lot of help along the way. And I'm just trying to kind of help prepare you for it a little bit because, you know, I guess I've done this a couple of times so that I know like kind of how it goes. In the beginning, it's a little bit frantic, getting the deal, and then all of a sudden it feels like there's a lull. It feels like there's not a whole lot happening. And while that's happening, it's more like this is percolating in the investors' minds. Once we actually get investors, you got to remember, I don't go spend $15,000 on a 506c corporation, which means I got to go pay the attorney. We got to file with the SEC because as soon as I do that, that money is gone. There is no return on any of it. It's a payment out to a vendor. We can't use that operating agreement on a different property. We can't change the timeline. We can't change the amount of money that we're raising. All of that is set. And so this is one of the reasons that it seems like everything happens all at the same time, all at the last second, because it kind of does. Because you want to really get to, it's almost like, you know, you don't jump over the edge until you get to the edge. You know, you don't start 10 feet back and jump over the edge. So all of this time leading up to like the edge before like I drop $4,000 on the EPA phase 1 study, 10, 15 grand, you know what I mean? It adds up to like $30,000, $40,000. And so we don't spend any of that money until we're basically absolutely sure. Due diligence is done. We've got some investors in, you know, interested, looking at it and really, really saying they're ready to pull the trigger. We wait until we have a lot of that done before we go and drop that money. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to give you a feeling of the arc of how it goes. It's not so much of an arc, it's kind of like a bowl. It's like an upside down, where it's really frenetic at the beginning, very kind of hectic. It kind of seems like you'll probably be talking to me like 3, 4, 5 times a week. And then it might slow down to maybe once a week, maybe every other week. And it happens like that. It feels like nothing's happening for a while. And then it gets closer to the end. Then we start spending that money. Then we start having the investors come in. Then the money comes in. And Travis, what do you think about like, now that we've spent that money, we've closed on the property, we have it moving, how do you feel about the investors bringing in the rest of the money?
It's probably like what Mike Tyson says. Yeah, everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
So that's kind of if this is going to play out that quickly, suddenly, all of a sudden, where I was like losing a little bit of sleep, I'm like, is this going to happen? There was a lot of drama, you know. It was very close to the edge, and we got some contractors that we might lose if they don't get the cash in time. And Alex is all like, we're going to figure it out. It's going to be okay. And sure enough, apparently he's right. So there you go.
Yeah. So good. Thank you for that endorsement, Travis. That's exactly how it goes. And I mean, this is one of the things that I'm doing is like a kind of an after action report here is, I know that it goes this way. So I want you guys to let me stress about that stuff. You don't need to be losing sleep over it because there's that little bit of that bowl action, you know? Is that a good way to describe it, Travis? It happened really frenetically at the beginning, then kind of a lull, then really frenetically in the end.
Yeah, I think with this one here, I found the deal, and then I met Doug, and then we both went up and talked to the owner, and then we got on your calendar like I don't know, like maybe a couple times a week for a while, and we were analyzing it, and then we met Shalonda, and then we started picking up the pace a little bit. And then we started getting a little more serious, and I'm a little hazy on how we transitioned to actually moving forward and getting the deal into escrow and all that stuff. Oh yeah, we went through the LOI phase, and that little bit of negotiation there. Went through the PSA phase, a little bit of negotiation there, and even that had some drama, and scrounging up some cash for escrow and whatever. So I'm not sure I answered your question, but yeah, that's pretty much how I recall it when it played out.
Yeah. Yeah. So just don't, I'm going through all this because I want to avoid, just like Travis said, he's been losing sleep over it, It gets to where you're like, is this even going to happen? And that's kind of the way every single deal I've done like this goes. All the syndications, all the different deals like this, it seems like, just remember this phrase, everything happens all at the same time, all at the last second. Like we literally closed on Tuesday, all day Friday. I was doing paperwork, emailing back and forth, begging the attorneys, the closing people, send me this, send me that, send me this. And literally, we had to close on Tuesday because the seller left on Wednesday. So the seller left today to go to Hawaii for 10 days. And he was like, if it doesn't close before that, I don't want to do it. And he's 86. So he's one of these crotchety guys. It's just like, if you don't do it in time, whatever. I'm going to die in a couple of years anyway. I don't really barely care about this. That's kind of the attitude the guy had. And a lot of times you wind up with some sort of situation, not exactly that, but I got all of the paperwork finally to me at 4 p.m. on Monday, which means I had to have it signed, notarized, and to UPS to overnight to be there at the escrow to close on Tuesday before the seller left on Wednesday. So you want to talk about everything happening all at the last time, all at the same time at the last second. That's the way it sometimes goes. So this means I'm calling up Travis, I'm calling up Doug, I'm calling up Shalonda, because we got to get these. If we didn't have all that stuff prepared, if we didn't have a bunch of folders with all the information, no way we'd have closed it. So really pay attention to those couple of videos that talk about organizing like your data room. That's one that I see a lot of people kind of skip over. They're like, yeah, data room, whatever. And maybe they go in Google Drive and just like dump everything into Google Drive and it's not organized. So that's one of the things to start off not doing. And that's one of the things that Doug will be helping you with as far as setting up folders of where to put things. So we basically have like a standard set of folders in the Google Drive. And as the video shows you, you go in and I'll open a Google Drive and I'll send you the link to it and you put all of your information in there. So whenever we actually start to really have a deal, which is whenever we're like, once we get the LOI back, then we have a deal starting. We have a starting of a deal, but really the actual start of a deal is when we open escrow. And in order to open escrow, we have to have the PSA back. That's the purchase sale agreement. So we're just kind of going through a little bit of the, like from the after action review. I want you guys to see like some of the steps as it happens. Really kind of hectic at the beginning, a lot of back and forth with the seller. We get the LOI. Now we're like opening a Google Drive. We're having a folder for it. We're actually really digging into the underwriting and getting more detailed with Travis coming in on the underwriting. Probably before the LOI, it's just you and me. You and I will be talking. We dig in on some of the numbers. We try to get as close as we can. And at that same time, we're trying to get information from the seller. And that's the information we're using on like the spreadsheets and all that kind of thing. We might have like a framework of a pitch deck. We get the LOI back. That's when we bring in Travis for underwriting. We bring in Doug on the Google Drive, and he'll start calling you and telling you, we need to get this. We need to get this for the construction. We need to know this about the sewer. We need to know about the septic. All of these, we need to know about the utilities. All of these questions he'll be asking you and trying to get that information to get it into the data room. And then we'll be bringing in Shalonda, and she'll be working with you on what is in that area. Tell her the story so that she can be helping you with the market report, researching what the comps are in the area so that you can give that to Travis so that he knows what to plug in to the spreadsheet so that we know what we think we can get the average daily rate to. Okay. Now I kind of skipped straight from the quick wins and went on a 27-minute rant, but hopefully that was some good information. I really
just
like
add
the
one
fact
more
that
thing.
yes, please.
One more thing. The more money you have in the bank as a GP, the easier it will be to close some gaps. Yeah, that's a true statement.
That's true. One of the big challenges we had with this deal is we moved it up 3 months. So that's where a lot of this money came in that we needed to be able to pay for things. The seller's attorney kind of changed our PSA from our LOI so that like 2 paragraphs were in different places, which made it was all the same information, just the paragraphs were a little bit different, but it made it to where the owner finance, we only got the owner finance if we closed by March 1st. But we weren't supposed to close until May. But because he changed the way that the paragraphs were arranged a little bit, not even the wording of it, he's like, no, y'all gotta close on March 1st or y'all gotta have 1.5 in May. And so, we went back and forth. I wanted us to wait until May and go ahead and raise the money. We went with what the team wanted. Let's go ahead and do it in March. And we got it done in March. But that's one of the reasons that it was a little bit more expensive and we had to throw up some money for stuff. Another reason is, remember that in the training, whenever you're doing the PSA and the LOI, there's a certain phrase that's in that LOI that says, buyer has the option to put in an earnest money note into escrow in lieu of cash. In lieu means instead of. So we can put in a note, which is like a promissory note, like a loan. What we're saying is it's like owner financing the earnest money. We're saying here is a note that we're going to put into escrow saying we owe you $30,000 earnest money. Not all sellers go for this. In fact, Jason's pushed back on it real hard. And that's one of the reasons that we went back and forth in the LOI phase quite a bit. Because we're trying to figure out, will this guy take an earnest money note? Turns out he pushed back on it real hard. Jason came up with the money and put it in earnest. Let's see, what's the other deal that we have? One of the other deals, earnest money note. Happy, right? Happy Acres. We wound up pulling out of that one because the seller changed some of the other terms, but we got it into escrow with an earnest money note, and same thing. He changed some of the rules of the game on us, and then all of a sudden was like, well, I got your $30,000 in escrow anyway, so I'll just take your $30,000. We're like, no, you won't, because we put in an earnest money note. So the seller in the Boston deal that we just closed was able to kind of hold us over a barrel a little bit because we had $30,000 in escrow, which would become his if we pulled out. So that's one of the reasons that we put in the earnest money note. This guy in at Happy Acres, he basically tried to do the same thing. And we just said, okay, well, we're pulling out. He's like, well, I have your $30,000. We're like, okay, you have a note. And the note is not even from us to you. The note is from us to escrow. And it's our escrow company, our escrow attorneys. We call up our attorneys and we just say, cancel the note because we're pulling out of the deal. They just cancel the note. So the note only becomes owable to the seller at closing. So if he's not closing, if we're not closing the deal, there is no note. There is no earnest money. And it's not ripping anybody off because that earnest money goes towards the closing. It goes towards the purchase price. So we would have had to bring, say we didn't have that 30,000 in escrow with Travis and them, and we did have a note, that means at closing, we would have to bring $30,000 to closing to close it because we have a note to escrow, which gets passed on to the seller. I know that sounded a little confusing. Are there any questions on that part? Because this is an important part that a lot of people have been missing. Okay, good. Remember, I can't say it enough times, remember to stick to that LOI and that PSA. Don't let their attorney change it. Don't let anybody else change it. Send it as a PDF. Don't send it to them as a Google Doc. It's a Google Doc for you to write in your information, the address of that property, your company, whatever, your personal information and the specifics to that property. But don't send it to them as a Google Doc, change it into a PDF and then send it to them. Because that's one of the things we did. We sent it to him as a Google Doc. He just rearranged the document and kind of tricked us. To tell you the truth, I feel like that was a lot more tricky than us putting in an earnest money note. The main reason also that we put in an earnest money note, we do escrow here in Texas because we have Madison Title Company. In Texas is a mutual release state, which means say we get into the property, it's a month before we're about to close, and we find out that the septic system is totally screwed up. There's all kinds of problems we didn't know about before. Now all of a sudden we've sent out like an EPA phase 1 study guy, and he's like, man, this septic has been polluting this land for 20 years, and you've had human feces running off into the neighbor's property for 20 years. And I mean, they could sue you like crazy. This would be a $20 million lawsuit for you ruining the neighbor's crops, killing off the neighbor's cows. I'm just coming up with weird scenarios, but these are the kind of things that can happen. And so if we had $30,000 or $50,000 in earnest money on a property, then that seller could say, well, too bad. I'm not letting you have your money out because Texas is a mutual release state. So me as the seller, even though it says in the contract that we can pull out and get our money back, he has to sign. The seller has to sign and allow us to take our money back. If it's an earnest money note, we can just call up Madison Title and say, cancel the note, because the note only goes to the seller at closing. So if we have canceled, there's no closing, there's no earnest money that goes to the seller. There's no money in escrow to hold us hostage. Okay? So a lot of this is not trickery to trick the seller. It's to protect us from trickery from the seller. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I just had one more thing.
Go ahead.
I know we're all new here, at least me and Granford. Maybe not Jason so much. Jason's been killing it. But as far as the new guys, and when it comes to due diligence, and I've had some multifamily training, and I know they say you're supposed to walk every unit, right? Go touch everything, down to you walking through the units with the general contractors that you trust, and then they give you their outside opinion. So when it comes to like doing your due diligence on a park. We're beyond like Google mapping, driving it through with the Google Maps and all that. I mean, can you elaborate on that a little bit? I mean, how in depth does someone at our level get when they're talking to the owner, and then they have to take it up a notch in the due diligence phase, at our level before we take it to you and we get to the other live phase and all that.
Whether you bring it to me or I go with you or not, exactly what you just said, walk every spot. Try to look at as many things as you can and take pictures of the inside of the pedestal. Take pictures of the sewer connection. Are all the sewer connections a little bit tilted and messed up? Are the pedestals or half of them leaning over to the side because they've been hit 20 times? Whenever you open it up and you look inside the pedestal, is there a 30 amp and a 50 amp in there? Or is the entire box ripped out because crackheads have come and stolen the entire thing? I have no idea how many parks I went to, and it looks beautiful. I went to this one here in Bowie, Texas. Had 50 spots already, the most gorgeous view you can't imagine. It was a gorgeous place. And turns out that's one of the ones that the septic was messed up. And it was on a hill. So we found out as we dug into it that the feces had been going onto the neighbor's property. Same thing that happened over there in Douglas Forest, where they had built it where the caps were too low. It started raining. The septic system filled up, over flooded, and now there's a septic waste going onto the neighbor's property. That was one thing we found by looking closer. Like, we really looked around at the property. Then that same property, you go and you open up the pedestal. The pedestal is the thing where you plug in your RV. They call it shore power. That's where you take your RV, you plug it into the power, and that's how you run your air conditioning and all your pumps and how you have lights in there. So if you have a park, especially the ones that we go look at, a lot of times, if they've been kind of left alone for a while, or it's just kind of an older person who's running it, who's not really paying as much attention or doesn't stay on top of it, people will steal the entire inside of the pedestal. So those are like 50 amp and 30 amp plugins and fuses and fuse boxes. All of that stuff in there has value to like an electrical contractor. So, I mean, if you had like 10 of those, you could, maybe you're a crackhead or something like that. Somebody who's trying to buy drugs, or I don't know, whatever. Maybe they're just down on their luck and they're trying to get money. But that's some of the things that people do. So walking each site, looking at as many of them as you can, and taking as many pictures as you can. Here's another great one Doug did. At this property, I think there was like 105 pictures in their first trip. Now, they suck because I can't use them for like advertising. All they show is all the problems. So now he's taking pictures of what makes it beautiful. So here's a little piece of advice, a little after action for us. Take both kind of pictures. Take pretty pictures and ugly pictures. And inside your picture folder in the Google Drive, which is your data room, in that Google Drive, have one folder that says pictures. Then inside that, it should be pretty pictures and ugly pictures. The ugly pictures are everything that's wrong with the park. You want to take all kinds of pictures of a tarp thrown over a roof, stairs that are crooked, worn out, have no paint on them, so they've been getting soaked and they're probably going to break this year. Take all of those pictures, those go in the ugly, and then, there's parts of the park that are like a nice little pond, pretty trees, maybe their dog area is really pretty, whatever. Get both kind of pictures and separate them out in the data room. Pretty pictures and ugly pictures. Go ahead, Jason.
I just wanted to say, when I heard a couple times when you folks here have been like, Jason is killing it. I just wanted to say that it does come at a cost. I'm putting in about 75 hours a week. It takes a toll on you. It's just my mission when I'm on. I'm just saying I'm extremely grateful for everything that's going on, but I'm just saying it's at a cost. It's pretty rough.
Yeah. Well, you definitely got a pretty solid reputation in the cohort here, so good on you for that.
Nice.
But point
Nice.
taken.
That's all I wanted to say.
And I mean, it comes at a cost to your pocket as well, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm heavily invested. I've gone 2 years with these two developments without a paycheck from it. I'm just living off of residuals from an insurance business I got. Just just making it happen, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, there's times for all of us, and like I'm the same way. I'm heavily invested in all the stuff I do. I'm about the same amount of hours and have been for a couple of years, actually more like 10 years. But putting this many hours in per week, you don't have to keep doing this once you close a couple of deals. Like Jason did those development deals, and that's one of the reasons. Maybe we can go back and Jason, you can comment on this in a second too. That's one of the reasons that I steer you away from the ones that are like ground up development, or if what's already there won't carry the rest of the property, like you can't pay the pref, so that means you can't pay your investors, and you can't pay the owner finance, and you can't pay the property management. If you can't pay those three things from what already exists on the property, then you're pretty much you're looking at like Jason's doing right now, 2 years. Like you're looking at 2 years with no money coming in and only money going out. So that's a really important. Jason, you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with what's your path and what's your goals too. You know, because for me, I started a family construction business that where all we do is RV parks. So now I'm to the point where I'm just stacking up RV parks either for me that we can do at cost for sweat equity, or just for other people for 30% profit. So that development side, that was kind of the idea, was just keep building up that side. Um, you know, but obviously it's way faster to find existing parks for sure.
Say you didn't have the development company or the construction company, and you were just doing these as development. How would you compare that to the deal that we're about to do in Oklahoma?
Yeah, they're way different. You know, because you're gonna have your best ROI on a development, but the deal is completely different because you have to structure all those overhead costs and everything. So like my first one is Whitney. I closed on loan April 17th. Um, we opened in October, and I'm finally now this past month or two breaking even on it to where I'm not putting any money into the loans. Just starting to turn a profit in the next few months.
So that's a
So
year
that
of
part,
money out on a loan, right?
yeah,
So out of your pocket every month, you're paying for a loan for a year,
right,
and that's a ground up development.
right, and that's best case scenario because it's out in the county and there was only one permit and nothing really got slowed down in that sense. But if you do a larger one, or there's a water well or different things like that, you can, or something that goes wrong, like the development I'm doing now in Oklahoma, we probably bled through $80,000 on just trying to tame this land because we underestimated the mud and the terrain on what it would take to get it grade and water shedding off of it, not retaining water. It's the weirdest clay I've ever seen. It's like black, and it's just like you'll be 3 feet deep, and it'll be sand, and it'll just be a little pocket that just holds water, and then you have soupy terrain that you have to fix. There's those variables that you can't account for. That if you had an existing open park, surely you'd be able to figure out by getting a septic guy out there to check out the tanks to see what kind of system you got. Do your due diligence a whole lot easier instead of just effing around and find out.
Yeah. So compare what you've done on Whitney to what you think is going to happen on your Oklahoma park, the one that we're doing together. Because let me back up. Jason has one Oklahoma park that he's building with some other folks, right?
I'm building. I'm 60% owner for just putting everything together, doing the construction at cost, and then the 40% was a guy that brought money to the table and qualified for the loan.
There you go. So he's doing that one. Then we have another Oklahoma property that we're doing together, and that one already has what, 50 units?
Yeah, 50 RVs, 13 campers, a luxury house rental, 80 acres, ATV trails, petting zoo. It's on the river.
Okay, so all that's already running, right?
Yep.
Currently, it makes around 28,000 per month, right?
Yep.
Okay, so how much have you been? I know we're digging into your pocket a little bit to try to find out, but how much have you been paying per month on your Whitney property?
It's an interest only loan. So like the first month, the payment was $700. Next month was 1,200, and then now it's at 4,200 a month. The loan payment. Now that all the funds have been dispersed,
Okay, so how much do you think you've paid over a year?
I don't know. It's been a blur. Uh,
So let's call it 50, 60 grand, right?
uh, no, because it's the first 6 months was 1 to 2 grand.
I see.
So 10, and then 20, so about 30.
Okay, so 30 grand you paid over the course of a year. Whereas this property we're about to do in Oklahoma together, that's already cash flowing, that already has units that we can use to carry the property, makes 30,000 per month now. That's before we even plug in our property management, before we do all the marketing, before we get the occupancy up from the 30% that it is now to the 60% we project it to be. So he's paid over the course of a year the amount that this next property makes per month right now. I'm just trying to show you the difference between if you do one of these ground ups or like one of the ones Joe Gesh and I were just looking at yesterday. I think it was yesterday. It's actually a gorgeous property and I'd love to do it, but there's no way that we can figure out that what's currently there can cover the costs, that can cover the land costs. Because that's, without going into too much detail, half of the property is water, like 3-4 feet of water, and half of the property is above water. It's at the sea, it's at the coast, it's near Galveston. It's a great property. It'd be really fun to do, but what's there cannot pay the investors and pay for the construction and pay for the owner finance if there is any. What's already there can't cover the property for even 1 month. Like if we took like 6 months of the income from that property, it wouldn't cover 1 month of the costs. So that's one of the things I really push it. I encourage people not to do development unless you're Jason, who's a professional developer who owns a construction company and has already done development. Then go buy an RV park that already exists. That's, we're going way back to my original thesis when I was been preaching to you from the beginning, is to find these properties that already have cash flow that you can use to carry the property until there's actual money coming in from. Does that sound right, Jason?
For sure.
Yeah. All right, Travis, you're next. I see your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what Jason said earlier about the struggle bus, as I know he's called it. I think what I appreciate, when everyone shows up here, we're all grinding, and we're all telling our stories, getting our emotional support or whatever other kind of support we might need, and forming a network and doing the teamwork stuff. And I think as long as we keep spinning it positive, we keep pushing, I think ultimately it's going to work out, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, a big part of what you just said, that prep in the front end. Because going back to the bowl, all that work at the front end, it gets kind of nerve-wracking as you're pushing towards the end because it really curves up at the end. But if you didn't do the work at the beginning and you started down here and then you tried to curve up at the end, you wouldn't have everything that you needed to make that curve and make it all happen at the last second all at the same time. That's where all this prep work, all this organization, having it all together in the beginning really is what pays off at the end. And then if you take the end and you move it back 3 months, that's where money kind of comes in to be able to help close the gaps and get things done. All right, go ahead, Clifford.
Yeah, so y'all have been educating me very well. My question is, you're talking about the benefits of going with a already established park rather than essentially starting ground up. Well, the one you and I are going to go look at has got me worried now. So my question is, look, I'll be straight up. I don't have that kind of capital coming in right now. I'm working on things right now, but it's probably not going to be, for a hot minute, to have that kind of capital to spread towards other things. So is this something that I should essentially just put on the back burner and not worry about this property, or just I don't just hand it over to somebody else? I don't know. But what I don't want to happen is I start making moves on it, get locked in, and then I'm out, all this money all the time that I don't have. So I just want to make sure that I'm making a good move.
Right. And that's one of the things we've been talking about, is that's why I'm going to go with you to talk to the seller. And I'm going to tell him, look, okay, let's back up and talk about some specifics. It has about 30 sites right now, right?
46.
It has 46 sites, but you can't really make them short term the way that he set them up. They're kind of like you have to pull into them and kind of almost parallel park into them. It's not really set up to be a short-term park. We could do some of them as short-term. I've been looking at it more since we talked, Cranford, but we could probably do about half of them as short-term, maybe. But the big challenge is that doesn't give us enough money to carry, because basically the guy wants $5 million. And it has 16 extra acres that are available to build on. Now, 5 million, that's way at the top of the food market, top of the food chain, so to speak. Because he wants 5 mil, and in order to pay him back, or to pay him off, or to pay off investors, we're going to have to spend about 5 mil. Because that means we're going to have to put in concrete roads, a pool, probably like a splash pad of some kind. So this might be more like 6-7 million. That's just in the development part. Okay. So that means the investors are going to have to put in about 5 million plus his 5 million. So that's $10 million now we got to carry. 46 spots that really can't be short term are not going to carry $10 million. Whether that's $10 million worth of pref to the investors, $10 million worth of owner finance towards this guy, or half owner finance, half pref, however you want to split it up. So this is one of the things that I'm going to go with Cranford to talk to the guy about and tell him, look, I'm not trying to be rude, but if I can't buy your property, nobody can, because no one can make the numbers work. And anybody who's going to put $5 million down on a property, or even any kind of $1 million, and owner finance the rest, they're going to know that you can't carry the property. So this is where it would be somebody like a big development company with like $100 million, like a private equity firm. Remember when I say that we stay in between 1 and 5 million, because above 5 million is where private equity will come in. So that means that you, sir, Mr. Seller, are going to have to sell your little 4-acre country time, Bartles and James RV park. I don't know if y'all are too young to know Bartles and James, but this is like, it's Andy Griffith stuff. You know what I mean? It's a guy out there with his own little tiny ditch witch digging the trails, doing it himself, and he's the owner. That type of a property is not going to carry this $10 million it's going to take to build this property. So I'm going to talk to him. And one of the things, so it's a great question, Granford. That's why I was saying we can only do it if he'll work a deal with us where he'll put in the property as equity. So what we're going to tell him is, look, we're going to make this a $20 million property because it is on I-20. Y'all heard me talk about I-20. I'm sure you're going to get sick of it over time. Me personally, I grew up in West Texas on the very west end of I-20. It comes through Dallas. It goes through Shreveport, Louisiana. It goes all the way to Florida. It goes all the way from California to Florida. So it's a huge thoroughfare. I personally grew up on this highway going back and forth, back and forth. Out in West Texas, there's nothing. So everyone drives on I-20 to get to anything. And so I've been up and down it a ton of times. I've been looking at RV parks since I'm a little kid. Every single one of them on I-20 is full. Ranger, that we're about to go look at with Lisa tomorrow, that's on I-20. Granford is looking at this one in Tyler on I-20. It's actually on. It has a huge amount of highway frontage, which means we could put up a big billboard. People can actually see it from the highway. It's actually, I'm pretty sure it's near an overpass, which means people will see, they'll be looking down and see the entire whole property. It's not like, if it's level, it might look like there's 10 RVs. They'll be looking from above it and they'll say, wow, you see there's 150 RV spots. So I think it's one that is worth investing into. Here's what I say, don't overbuild the neighborhood. If you're looking at an RV park and it's in a tiny town and it doesn't have a great draw and it doesn't have a lot of traffic past it, you're not going to build concrete roads, a splash pad, a swim up pond, a swim up, pool bar. You're not going to have like a little roller coaster at the side and a humongous $3 million playground for the kids. You're not going to have all that in a little tiny town with no draw. This is one of the ones where I think we could go invest $5 million and pay $5 million for the land and still make money for our investors. So that's some of the stuff that we're looking at. That's why, Grandford at first, remember I told you, I don't know about this one. We dug a little bit deeper and the guy said, yeah, he will be interested in making a deal. Okay, cool. Now, another thing is there's a broker in it. But we're actually getting to talk directly to the owner. So we don't care if there's a broker. It's not like we're trying to cut real estate agents or brokers out, but I personally won't do a deal where the broker is in between me and the seller. So I encourage you not to let the real estate agent be in between you and the seller, because you have to be able to make a deal. The real estate agent, they have 20 other properties. Do you think they're going to pay attention to this one thing and represent you as you trying to make a deal? No, they're representing the other side. They have a responsibility to the seller to try to get them as much money as possible, and that doesn't include making you a deal. Now, this realtor, for example, $5 million this guy wants for it. Say he's going to put it in for equity, but he's still going to want some money. Say it's $500,000 he wants, because that's what we call the walkaway money. If you remember that from some of the other classes, we're trying to figure out what is your walkaway money. Do you have a little note on this property that you need to pay off? And do you want to, you probably lived on the property. Do you want to go move to somewhere closer to your kids? Do you want to pay off your cousin's house? I don't know. There's certain things people have in their mind that's like, okay, as soon as I get this $5 million, they already have $500,000 of it spent. That's their walkaway money. Try to figure that out. That's one of the things we're going to talk to the seller about. What is your walkaway money? Okay, we'll give you that. Well, out of that, $5 million is the actual sale. So that means that the real estate agent is going to make $150,000. So whatever his walkaway money is, we need to add $150,000. Because we want the realtor to get paid. We want the realtor to get paid. We don't want to cut them out of a deal, but we also don't want them in between us and the seller, because the real estate agent is never going to go and give a great impassioned speech and pitch to the seller representing you. They're going to give that impassioned negotiation and speech representing their seller, who is their client. Okay? So remember that as we deal with brokers and wholesalers and all that kind of stuff, mostly wholesalers just cut them out. But a broker, an agent, you don't want to cut them out, but you don't want them in between you and the seller. You need to be able to work directly with the seller to make a deal. Every once in a while, there's a needle in a haystack. Then you might find a broker that's down and they might work with you, maybe. But most of the time I've found, just from experience, it's pretty rare. Go
Real
ahead,
quick.
Travis.
Sorry, 2 points. I guess this sounds like, I guess one of the things I learned for the multifamily thing is if a seller has poor bookkeeping practices, then the buyer likely will not be able to get a loan on the property, which puts the seller in the bind, not the buyer. So the seller is the one that needs to negotiate if they really want to move on. And I think the other point I wanted to make was if someone in this cohort, and I know Alex says it a lot, we're here to do deals with each other as well. So if someone on the team finds a deal that they're concerned about, then talk to the other members in the cohort and see if we can come up with a strategy together.
Good point. And I mean, there are other people in this cohort that have had some other investments that have some money. So I mean, that's something to reach out to people and talk to them about as well. So a lot of the stuff that Travis was talking about, that 30,000 they had to put into escrow, that was a mistake from not using the earnest money note. The other money that needed to be paid for Doug to fly up there and Doug to bring up people to help him clean was because we moved it from May to March because we didn't stick to the LOI and the PSA. So a lot of these things that are set out for you, a lot of that cost came from not following all the stuff that's in the videos, all the stuff that we talk about every single week. So remember that. I know you're getting scared, Grantford. I heard it in your voice a second ago. Crap, man, I don't have this much money to just go throwing money at this and that. You don't have to. The way to avoid that, stick to the program, stick to all the stuff that you know. It's in the videos, it's in the LOI, it's in the PSA. Make sure and stick to all that. You're gonna be cherry. Okay, it's 4 o'clock. I've actually got to go have dinner with an LP. Let's go try to get some money. Let's go try to close these deals. I'm really proud of how all y'all are doing. I'm sorry I didn't get around to everybody for the quick wins. Catch Douglas tomorrow. He's going to be at 3 o'clock. Go ahead, Bradford, real quick.
Just real fast. The broker has agreed to the time that you wanted to.
Okay, awesome. So we're going Monday to see this one. And I think Jason's going to come with us because he'll look at doing the construction. He'll help us get the construction quote down. That way we know how much it's going to cost. Lisa, I see you popped on your camera. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Thanks for coming to the call. Was it good value tonight, Lisa?
Yeah, good. We're just I'm in the Jeep now. We're parking the RV, so a little distracted.
Okay.
But we'll see you in the morning.
We'll let you park.
Bright and early.
Okay, see you in the morning. Bright and
All
early.
right, bye.
All right, thanks
Bye-bye.
everybody. You guys are really great. I'm so proud of this team that closed it. I'm proud of all the rest of this team. Jason's about to close this in K River. Grantford's about to open this one up. Lisa's about to be closing this one in Ranger.